So the next thing we want to talk about is how to create text and dimensions and size them properly so when we go to add them to the layout they come out to the right size. So we've got a drawing and I measured from this point to this point and it's roughly 80 feet by 60 feet. If we go to the ANSI D layout, you can see if we measure this using the distance command, this is approximately 33 inches by 22 inches, which is the size for an ANSI D piece of paper here, or actually 34 by 22. And if we measure the viewport specifically, we get measurements that are on the order of 31 inches by 20 inches. So if we go over to our formula here that says paper space times scale factor equals model space size, and we abbreviate it PS times SF equals MS. Our paper space was 31 inches by 20 inches tall. The model itself is about 80 feet wide by 60 feet tall. And if we go through the calculations to compute the two scale factors for the different directions, you get 31 and 36. And again, we need to exceed the maximum here. So we need an architectural scale factor that's going to be greater than 36 so that both dimensions fit properly. And the most common one that is slightly bigger than that would be 1/4 inch equals a foot, which has a scale factor of 48. Now, when it comes to text, if we say we want our text to be 1/8 of an inch on paper when printed, that means that your paper size is 1/8 of an inch. We've got our scale factor from up here, which would be the 48. So the only thing left is to figure out the model space size. And so if you do the calculation here, it comes out to be 6 inches. So that means when we go to add text, it needs to be 6 inches in our model, because when it comes into the viewport, it gets scaled down by a factor of 48. And that would leave us with 1/8 of an inch. So over here in our drawing, what we want to do is add text to these different rooms. So for instance, this one's called the Open Office. If we go over to the Annotate tab, there is a text panel, and what we can do is go to the text style editor and we can create a new text style. So I'm going to create a new style. It's going to be called Arial 6. We're going to set the font to Arial, and I'm going to make the text height 6 inches. Hit apply, close, and now from the list we can select that option. So I'm going to select Arial 6 and go to multi-line text, or M text for short. And this is just like a text box in Word or PowerPoint here. We'll drag it to the region we want. You can see we get a bunch of new commands up here for justification. We can add symbols, spacings, etc. We've already got the Arial font set and the text height set, which were the two big ones. And now in all caps, we'll call this, I think this is the break room. If we go back to our drawing here, yeah, you can see it's called the break room. And we can actually underline this if we want using the underline feature up here, and hit the close text editor and it'll save our changes. So what we could do now is go to this and do a copy command, or just Control C if you want, and move these around. And when you want to modify a text, you can double click on it and it'll bring back up this editor here, and we can call this the laboratory. Hit escape. Escape will actually do the escape or the close command, and it might prompt you the first time if you want to save your changes, and I always do, so that my changes are saved from step to step. Now, we previously took the steps to add our existing objects to a new drawing that was set up using a template, the ACAD UD drawing template. And one of the reasons for doing that is it brought over our dimension styles as well. So if you look under the dimension drop down, we've got annotative and standard, which are the two default, but we also have this architectural style. We need to go to the dimension style manager and go to architectural and click on modify. And what we want to do is actually modify under the fit tab this scale. So we're going to modify this to 48, which corresponds with your scale factor for the viewport. And the way the dimensions are actually set up is you set up the size on paper. So for instance, the arrow size is set to be 1/8 of an inch, And when we go to add it to our model, we actually need to scale things up. So since all of this is specified as the size on paper, we can use our viewport scale factor and everything will be increased to the appropriate size. So I'll hit OK, I'll hit close, and then the dimensions that I want to use here are the linear dimension. So we'll pick off this first edge from object snap to object snap. And then we can also make use of this continue to quickly dimension all of these successive measurements here. So I'm just doing one after the other. And then I can come back and I can do my dimension for my overall measurement. I'm going to move these out of the way. So we'll move them way off to the side so I don't have to look at them. Then I need to come in here and do some dimensions for some of these other things. So for instance, we'll start dimensioning these features here. We can use continue again. And the reason I moved them so far out is so I avoid this door. And then we can go to linear and pick up the overall dimension of this side of the building. We can do the same thing down here. And I'm going to bring this way out so I can clear that door as well. Do a continue, endpoint, endpoint, endpoint. And now we'll jump down to this section. And some of these kind of overlap, so what we can do is we can take them and actually move them so that they're not going to conflict. Come back to linear, go across the entire dimension here. Again, this one conflicts, so we'll come down here and we'll move it out of the way. And then we also want to pick up things like our equipment pad over here if you've added that. And all of the rooms as well. So we'll do a shift right click, go to nearest, pick up this measurement, come straight across, and start measuring things like all of our interior walls here. You can see that some of these measurements are actually overridden in our drawing. For instance, this one in the break room is 19 feet 2 inches. It's got a plus or minus, and if we actually measure it, it's 19 1.5. So what we can do is double click on these. You see in purple it's actually got the dimension, but we can delete those and come up to the symbols, add the plus minus. We could do 19 feet 2 inches, and now that looks correct. Looks just like all the other dimensions, except we've overridden the properties of that dimension. So we can just go through here and finish up these dimensions. And we just need to add enough so that we've got everything covered, and we want to move them so they don't overlap with some of the underlying features here. And I'm going to leave it off here, and I'll show you what the final version looks like in the next video here.